Picture this. You're 18 years old. It's World War II. Your father and brother have died fighting the Nazis. Your mother is alone, depending on you. But you feel this burning desire to join the resistance, to fight for your country. What do? Stay home and care for your mother? Or leave her to fight for freedom? This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This was a real dilemma faced by a young student who came to the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre for advice. And Sartre's response? He said something that might shock you. There is no right choice. Ask a patriot, and they'll tell you that risking your life is heroism. Ask your mother, and she'll call it madness. Ask 1,000 people, and you'll get 1,000 different answers. So I can only give you one piece of advice. Choose, and live with it. Because if there's a sign telling you what to do, you won't find it in the world. You'll find it within yourself. Now, you might think that's a terrible answer, but here's the thing. Sartre was onto something profound. When it comes to difficult decisions, no one can choose for a you. And that reality? It's both terrifying and liberating. We live in a world of incredible uncertainty, and it's taking a toll on our mental health. Think about it. At 17, society expects you to choose a career. At 17, I didn't even know how to choose clothes at that age. I was so confused about everything that I dressed like Neo from The Matrix, thinking it would protect me. It protected my virginity, sure, but not much else. But seriously, our education system has failed us. We're part of a generation that never learned how to choose. The statistics prove it. In Brazil, only 2 out of every 10 college graduates actually work in their field of study. The majority discover they don't want to work in what they studied. Or worse, they can't find jobs at all. This brings us to a crucial question. How do we make good choices when we live in a system that's often corrupt and unjust? The answer lies in philosophy, and today, I want to share insights from 2 brilliant thinkers who couldn't be more different. Jean-Paul Sartre, an atheist existentialist, and Søren Kierkegaard, a Christian philosopher. Both have powerful opinions about choice, and I challenge you to listen without your mind exploding. Let's start with a thought experiment. When you see a bird flying, you think, that creature is free. It can fly anywhere. But from a philosophical perspective, is it really free? I'd argue that no, it's not. In fact, you, even without wings, are far more free than that bird. Consider the cuckoo bird. The moment it hatches, it's filled with violence. It pushes its siblings out of the nest. Why? Because it has no choice. It's following an instinct carved by natural selection. The violent ones survived and passed on their genes, while the gentle ones perished. Violence became part of this species' essence. But here's the fundamental difference between animals and humans. Animals are born with a fixed essence tied to their instincts. Humans are not trapped by any fixed nature. Through concepts like good, evil, love, and justice, we can decide what we want to become. If you're unhappy, you can even decide to stop being human. That's how free you are. You are more free than a bird, because through conscious choices, you define your essence. Now, it's true that social factors influence this process. Someone raised in a violent environment is more likely to develop a violent or traumatized essence. But Sartre argues that none of this implies determinism. I have a cousin who's the daughter of a pastor, but she didn't become religious. On the contrary, at 15, she came out as a lesbian. I remember once at Christmas, as a child, I asked my mom, "Why doesn't Eva have hair?" My mom replied, "Well, son, your cousin made a choice, and we need to respect it." Then she added, "She chose the fires of hell." This brings us to our dilemma in a new light. Why is choosing so difficult? Because with every decision, you define your essence. From an existential perspective, that's a tremendous responsibility. Sartre wrote, "Man is condemned to be free." Notice he didn't say blessed, he said condemned, when he's suggesting that our existence is a paradox. We are prisoners of our own freedom because, existing as we do, we have no choice but to choose. The passage of time reinforces this dilemma. After all, humans are the only animals that know they're going to die. This consciousness accompanies us throughout our lives, even when we're not aware of it. So when you face a difficult decision and say to yourself, "I won't choose, I can't," you're already choosing. You've chosen to remain paralyzed. A fundamental part of your consciousness knows this, and that's where a treacherous feeling emerges. Existential anxiety. The sensation that time is slipping through your fingers and you're throwing your life away. Before I continue, let me open up about something personal. Two things inspired me to explore this topic. First, a book called Being Free with Sartre. If you enjoy reflecting on existence, you'll love it. But the second inspiration was a feeling that's hard to explain. Sometimes I feel disconnected from reality, not in a cool way, like I'm different, but in an exhausting way. There are so many choices, so many paths, and I lack the energy to navigate them all. This wasn't always the case. It started after I lost someone suddenly. Today, I handle it better, but initially, it was terrible. I fell into a spiral of grief and lost the will to do everything, even getting out of bed. It's terrifying because humans are born moving. Our most basic impulse is to act. What happens to your body when your mind is invaded by such apathy that existing loses meaning? Many things can lead to this state. For me, it was loss. But sometimes it's enough to notice the world's injustice, death, uncertainty. If you start thinking too much, you risk feeling at the mercy of chaos, believing no choice matters. Today, I know that's not true. Choices matter, especially the small ones. Eating well, combing your hair, avoiding toxic people. If you're honest with yourself, you'll notice that embracing one choice won't fix your life overnight. But if today, just today, you choose to prioritize yourself, that's incredible. Sometimes that's all that's missing. The decision to listen to your pain and put yourself first. Let me tell you about Kierkegaard's story. This Christian philosopher fell in love with a young black woman who was intelligent and wonderful. They dated, got engaged. Everything was set for marriage. Until suddenly, he decided to break up. Just like that, he left the woman devastated. Years later, he wrote a letter explaining why he did it. He didn't think he was good enough. He overthought everything. He convinced himself that his sweet fiancée deserved someone better. She ended up marrying another man, while Kierkegaard, drowning in remorse, never loved anyone again. He spent the rest of his life trying to answer, why do we choose wrong? The result was a brutal book that slaps you in the face. He wrote, choose this or that, you will regret it. Love or don't love, cry or don't cry, care or don't care. It's all the same. You will regret it either way. This sounds pessimistic, like something you'd read on a depressed teenager's Tumblr. But actually, it's the opposite. Kierkegaard is making a provocation about the meaning of life. His idea, As long as we choose expecting happiness, we'll be unhappy. Because look, we grow up with the illusion that good decisions are synonymous with an easy life. This discourse is reinforced by our materialist culture. Choose the right partner, the right college, the right profession, and you'll be happy. The reality is obviously much more complex. Every great choice involves some degree of suffering. The best relationship will still have fights. The best college will have boring classes. The best job will have a manager who won't shut up. When we choose expecting happiness, it's easier to get frustrated with life's ups and downs. This creates fertile ground for regret. Kierkegaard's solution: forget happiness. Seek meaning. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine Faustino goes to the food court, hungry, and faces two food trucks. Adolf's sells the best burger in town, but the fries are mediocre. Bum Bum doesn't have great burgers, but their fries are divine. Both have promotions, but Faustino only has $10. Indecisive, he goes to whichever has the shorter line. But as he's about to bite his burger, he overhears, "Truth, love, what a delight. I love when you order from Bum Bum." "I agree, they're so golden. I remember when I proposed to Grandma that night." Suddenly, Faustino looks at his sad, wilted fries and doubts his choice. It's easy to think this because this was a meaningless decision. But let's change the scenario. While waiting in line, Faustino sees a news report. Adolf's owner is being investigated for financing anti-Semitic groups. The businessman denied it and asked people to stop bothering him because he's busy designing his new mascot, little Adolf. Suddenly, Faustino loses his appetite. He thinks, "I can't give my money to that." He decides, "You know what? Today, I'm going with Bum Bum." This guarantees he won't regret his choice, not because the food is better, but because now Faustino has a why that sustains his decision, a reason based not just on pleasure, but on values. The decision gained meaning because it reflected Faustino's values. The problem with choosing for happiness is that we always lose. If you choose the burger, you miss the fries. If you choose the fries, you miss the burger. It's difficult to compare options because each brings different pleasures. This applies to any decision. Should I get married or stay single? Live alone or with my parents? Confess my feelings to that person, or keep reacting to everything they post with little fire emojis? Nobody knows. As my favorite movie says, anything could be anything else and have the same meaning. By accepting this reality, we can see our choices from a new perspective. You are a primate, condemned to be free, living in constant anxiety. A bird comes into the world with a defined essence, so it doesn't need to answer for its murderous instincts. You, on the other hand, need to justify your actions to the world and, above all, to yourself. This is what Sartre means by man is condemned to be free. This is what Kierkegaard means by choose or don't choose, you will regret it. These opposite thinkers, atheist and Christian, are saying the same thing. There is no objectively right or wrong choice. What exists is you and your values, and those values are subject to change. In other words, when faced with doubt, we should forget what seems better or easier and focus on what makes sense now, in the present. For this, you need to know yourself, because what makes sense to one person doesn't make sense to another. If you doubt this, throw an introvert into a nightclub and observe. What's the easiest way to get to know yourself? By choosing. Because when you choose right, you learn. When you choose wrong, you learn again. Our paralysis comes from the false notion that if we make a bad choice, we'll be ruined. This isn't true, unless you're a soccer coach who chooses to play defensively when you're winning by 1 goal with 4 minutes left, handing victory to a country so small that when one resident farts, the other has to move to the ocean. Then maybe it's true. But in general, there's room to experiment. Even the most thoughtful decisions are still subject to factors we can't control. The pressure to always choose the best option isn't just unfair, it paralyzes us. Nobody has that much control over life. By seeking meaning instead of happiness, our choices become mechanisms for self-knowledge. I choose what makes sense to me now according to my values. If everything goes wrong, I learn, update my values, and choose again. The process for making difficult decisions begins with the easiest choice, taking responsibility for our lives. This includes being gentler with ourselves. After all, if we're condemned to freedom, there's no reason to increase that sentence with harsh self-criticism. Nobody is perfect. We're here to learn. The real wrong choice? Staying paralyzed, thinking you can avoid choosing. Let me share something that might resonate with you. There was a period in my life when I felt completely disconnected from reality. Not in a romantic, I'm special way, but in an exhausting, overwhelming way. There were so many choices, so many paths, and I felt like I lacked the energy to navigate any of them. This feeling intensified after I experienced a sudden loss. Initially, it was devastating. I fell into a spiral of grief and lost the motivation to do anything, even basic things like getting out of bed. What's terrifying is that humans are born with the impulse to move, to act. When your mind is invaded by such profound apathy that existence loses meaning, your body simply stops. Many things can trigger this state. For me, it was grief. For others, it might be recognizing the world's injustices, confronting mortality, or feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty. When you start overthinking everything, you risk feeling completely at the mercy of chaos, believing that no choice matters. But here's what I've learned. Choices do matter, especially the small ones. Choosing to eat well, choosing to take care of your appearance, choosing to distance yourself from toxic people. When you're honest with yourself, you realize that making one choice won't transform your life overnight. But if today, just today, you choose to prioritize yourself, that's remarkable. Sometimes that's all we need. The decision to listen to our pain and put ourselves first. Now, I want to be clear about something. I get irritated when people say, to improve your life, you just need to want it. Thanks, I'm cured. That's not what I'm suggesting. What inspired me to explore this topic was the recognition that decision-making is genuinely difficult, even when the best choice seems obvious. But philosophy can help break through that paralysis. The key insight from both Sartre and Kierkegaard is this. We've been approaching choice all wrong. We've been taught to seek the right choice, the one that will make us happy. But happiness is fleeting. Meaning endures. When you make decisions based on your values, even if those values evolve over time, you create a foundation for growth and self-understanding. You're not just choosing what to do, you're choosing who to become. Here's something liberating. You don't need to choose perfectly. You need to choose authentically. Think about it this way. Every choice is an experiment in becoming yourself. Some experiments work out exactly as planned. Others teach you what you don't want. Both outcomes are valuable. The paralysis we feel when facing big decisions often comes from the misconception that there's one perfect path forward. But perfection is an illusion. What's real is your capacity to make choices that reflect who you are in this moment, with the understanding that who you are will continue to evolve. This doesn't mean being reckless or impulsive. It means accepting that uncertainty is part of the human condition, and that waiting for certainty is often just another form of choosing to let life happen to you rather than actively participating in it. Sartre's concept of being condemned to be free might sound harsh, but it's actually empowering. It means that regardless of your circumstances, you retain the power to choose your response. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you interpret and respond to those experiences. This responsibility can feel overwhelming, especially when you're young or facing major life transitions. But it's also what makes us human. Animals follow instinct. Humans create meaning. When my cousin came out as a lesbian, despite being raised in a religious household, she was exercising this fundamental human freedom. She looked at the expectations placed on her, considered her own truth, and chose authenticity over conformity. That choice likely involved significant pain and risk, but it also represented the essence of human dignity, the refusal to be defined by external forces alone. One of the most important realizations I've had is that transformation often happens through small, consistent choices rather than dramatic, life-altering decisions. Choosing to get out of bed when you're depressed. Choosing to eat something nutritious when you're stressed. Choosing to reach out to a friend when you're isolated. Choosing to walk away from conversations that drain your energy. These might seem insignificant compared to choosing a career or a life partner, but they're actually the building blocks of the person you become. They're how you practice the art of choosing authentically. Every small choice is an opportunity to align your actions with your values, to practice self-compassion, and to experiment with who you want to be. Our culture sells us the illusion that there are perfect choices, choices that will lead to pure happiness without any downsides. This is not only false, but harmful. It sets us up for disappointment and regret. The truth is messier and more beautiful. Every significant choice involves trade-offs. Every path not taken remains a mystery. Every decision opens some doors while closing others. But this isn't a tragedy. It's the human condition. And within that condition lies incredible possibility. When you choose a career, you're not just choosing tasks to perform for money. You're choosing how to spend the majority of your waking hours, what problems to engage with, what community to join. When you choose a relationship, you're not just choosing companionship. You're choosing how to grow, what conflicts to navigate, how to practice love. These choices are profound, not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. Both Sartre and Kierkegaard understood something crucial. Human existence is full of contradictions, and trying to resolve all of them is futile. You can simultaneously love someone and be frustrated by them. You can be grateful for opportunities while grieving paths not taken. You can make the best decision possible with the information you have and still experience regret. This isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of being fully human. The goal isn't to eliminate these contradictions, but to live within them with grace and authenticity. To make choices not because they're perfect, but because they align with who you are and who you're becoming. One thing that's often overlooked in discussions of individual choice is that we don't choose in isolation. We choose within communities, relationships, and social contexts that both constrain and support us. This is why knowing yourself is so crucial. When you understand your values, you can better navigate the various influences and expectations around you. You can distinguish between choices that serve your authentic growth and choices that merely satisfy external pressures. Building a community that supports authentic choice-making is one of the most important things you can do. Surround yourself with people who encourage your growth, who aren't threatened by your evolution, who celebrate your courage to choose authentically even when those choices are difficult to understand. Like any skill, choosing authentically requires practice. Start small. Pay attention to moments throughout your day when you face choices, however minor. Notice what influences your decisions. Are you choosing based on fear, social expectation, authentic desire, past experience? Practice pausing before automatic responses. Ask yourself, what do I actually want here? What choice would reflect my values? What am I afraid of? This kind of mindful choosing builds the muscle you'll need for bigger decisions. It also helps you recognize that you're already making choices constantly. The question is whether you're making them consciously or unconsciously. Ultimately, the goal isn't to master choice-making in some final, definitive way. The goal is to engage with the process of choosing as a fundamental part of being human. Every choice teaches you something about yourself, about the world, about what matters to you. Every choice is an opportunity to practice courage, authenticity, and self-compassion. When you make a choice that doesn't work out as expected, you haven't failed. You've gathered information. You've experimented with being human. You've participated in the ongoing project of creating yourself. So, coming back to where we started, is every choice the right choice? In one sense, no. Some choices lead to outcomes that align better with your values and well-being than others. Some choices create more opportunities for growth and connection. Some choices reflect deeper self-knowledge and courage. But in another sense, yes, every authentic choice, every choice made from a place of self-awareness and alignment with your values, is right because it's yours. It's an expression of your freedom, your humanity, your ongoing commitment to creating a meaningful life. The student who came to Sartre during World War II, we don't know what choice he made, but we know that in seeking guidance, in wrestling with the decision, in recognizing the weight of his freedom, he was already doing something profoundly right. He was choosing to choose consciously, and that, perhaps, is the most important choice any of us can make. The choice to engage fully with our freedom, to take responsibility for our lives, and to make decisions from a place of authentic self-knowledge rather than fear or external pressure. You are condemned to be free. You will regret some of your choices. Life will never be free from uncertainty or difficulty. But within that reality lies extraordinary possibility. The possibility to create meaning, to grow continuously, to surprise yourself with your own courage, and to participate actively in the grand human project of becoming who you are. Your choices matter, not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. And you, with all your uncertainty, all your contradictions, all your magnificent human complexity, you matter too. Choose consciously. Choose courageously. Choose with compassion for yourself and others. And remember, in the deepest sense, every authentic choice is the right choice, because it's an expression of your irreplaceable humanity. Thank you.